Hi folks, it's week 6. Yay! Totally end in sight. I imagine some of you are starting to catch up because week 5 was a little on the light side. Week 6 is even lighter still. You've got plenty of time. Don't panic. For week 6, your assignment is merely finishing up the hood, which is rows 35 through 73 for the small size, and rows 1 through 73 for the structural panel. Now, don't get all freaked out. 73 rows, oh my God, it's only 24 stitches, okay? It's going to be a zip, especially compared to what you guys have been doing already. So, a light week for you. Hopefully you guys can, some of you can catch up or almost catch up because next week's going to be lighter still. I guarantee it. One thing I want to point out and stress is when you're doing the hood, okay, I probably should have mentioned this last week also, but when you're doing the hood, make sure that you decide personally which hood size you want, okay? The original garment that I made is the large hood. Skacel, when they wrote the pattern up, also added a smaller size hood option, okay? It's got nothing to do with the garment size. It's merely the size of the hood, okay? Your personal preference. Alrighty? Let's see. The only part that's not self-explanatory kind of thing would be the bind off of the hood. And I've got a little short demo to show you how. I do it in a 2-step phase. Actually, I suppose you could call it actually 3 steps. But I like it. It makes a flatter seam, and I think it makes a neater seam from the inside with, well, you'll see. All right. Demo on the bind off of the hood. See you next week. Bye. Alrighty, so here we go. We're going to bind off this hood. We're going to make the center seam on the hood and make it all kind of nice and neat. So what you've done is I've taken smaller needles, okay, just to give me some wiggle room. Taken some smaller needles, divided my stitches in half. So I have half on one needle, half on the other, and I have right sides together. Now let's start. It's going to be a 2-part process. My right sides together. Here's my working yarn. This is my regular large needle that I've been working everything with. I want to make sure that I keep these stitches kind of loose. We don't want any binding up on our seams. So here we go. The first thing we do is we've got this 41 herringbone. See the insides against this 41. Insides together. And the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to knit together 1 stitch from this front needle, okay, and 2 stitches from this back needle. And I'm just going to knit those together and pull them off. Now, I'm just going to do basically the same thing, except I'm going to go 2 loops from the back, from the front, 2 from the back, oopsies, and knit them together and pull them off. And I'm going to keep on doing that until I get through all 41 of the herringbone stitches. It's probably easier if when you do it, you can really kind of go through that one, then bring it through this one. Trying to pull it through all 4 of those loops with these 2 needles might be kind of fiddly. So just do 1 needle at a time. It won't hurt anything. Plus it'll keep it nice and loose. You want to make sure these are nice and loose. You don't want anything binding up. 2 loops on the front, 2 loops on the back, and knit them together. 2 loops from the front, 2 loops from the back, and knit them together. All right, Now let me finish up these foot herringbone, and we'll get towards the end and I'll show you what to do next. Because you got to deal with an extra stitch back here. Hold on. Okay, we're coming down to the wire. I've worked across these herringbone, doing 2 loops of the front, 2 loops of the back together, and pull them off. I've got just a few loops left here, so let's work these last few ones. 2 loops from the front, 2 loops from the back. Knit it together and pull it off. And now let's take a look and see where we're at. I've got 2 loops left on the front needle, but I only have 1 loop left on the back needle. That's okay, because if you remember at the very beginning, we did the opposite effect. We started with 2 and did 1, so we got to eat those up. So this very last herringbone part will go through 2 loops on the first needle, on the front needle, 1 loop on the back, oopsies, and we'll knit them off. Okay, now we take another end of the yarn. We need 2 strands for this part, and I didn't follow my own directions. I never said to cut the yarn in the pattern, but I went ahead and did it because I really kind of wanted to use the yarn ball for something else. But anyway, you should have a working yarn still attached here. So let me find my end. Okay, ready to go. I've got 2 strands. Now I'm at the garter stitches, and here we just do 1 garter stitch, or actually 2 strands, and knit those together and pull them off. Another garter stitch pair, knit those together and pull them off. Another garter stitch pair, knit those together and pull them off. Now we're at the stockinette part, and I will do the same across 8 of these stockinette stitches. Just 8 of them. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My marking yarn's poking out. 6, 7, 8. Okay, now we're at step 2 of the directions. All right, step 2 of the directions says slide the stitches back to the other needle tip. Okay, doesn't make a whole lot of difference which one you choose. Okay, so I'm just going to take this front one and give myself some slack. Leave these stitches on the cable, get myself some slack, or you can just use another needle altogether. So I'm just going to slip these back on here. Just slipping them back. Okay, getting towards the end of slipping these stitches back to a needle, and here we are. Okay. This loop right here, these are the ones that aren't worked. These are the ones that are worked. Okay? So, got them all slipped back. Now, what I want to do is slip 2, okay, take the first stitch and pass it over. Slip 1, take the first stitch, pass it over. Slip 1, first stitch, pass it over. And just keep doing this all the way across those stitches that we just worked in step 1. Okay, finishing up our slipping the stitch over. And there we go. Okay, we've got this stitch sitting here. What we've got left is this one on here, And we've got 10 on this front needle and 10 stitches on this back needle. Okay? Now, take your yarn, your working yarn, okay, that's hanging down here, and go ahead and cut it. And pull it through the loop. So that took care of that. Here is the top of the hood, all bound off. I like doing this 2 steps, okay, because it doesn't seem to make as high a ridge as your typical 3 needle bind off, and I think it has a little bit more give. And that's what it'll look like on the other side. A really nice, neat seam. Okay? Now let's work with the back of the hood. Basically what we're going to do, instead of binding these off in another, continuation of this line, what we're going to do is we're going to have a seam that goes perpendicular to this line. This bind off is actually going to run this way against this one. Okay? Going to make it perpendicular. So what we want to do, excuse me, is take a needle. You're going to have to do a little stip manipulation. It's not bad. It's only 10 stitches. What we want is 5 stitches from the back needle, 5 stitches from the front needle. We want to keep them kind of in order. All right? So we want these 5, and we want these 5. Okay? Now, I'm going to have to do a little bit of manipulation here. What might be easier for you is if you took it like this and actually removed your cable. Okay? Then slip this 5th, 4th, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st stitch from that needle. See how I did that? See how it's sitting there? And then I can take the 1st one, 2nd one, 3rd one, 4th one, 5th one from that needle. So now I have 10 stitches right here, and see they're all in a line. None of them are twisted, right? They're in their proper order still. That's what we want to make sure we keep going. Now with this one, you can do it the same kind of way, but what's really kind of cool is with these addies, of course, and take my ends off. Pull my cable through. And I can slip my stitches back here onto the back end of this needle, keeping everything nice and tidy and in the proper order. It's a little fiddly, but hey, it's only 5 stitches, right? Those of you who don't have clicks, easiest way to do this is just to get out a few pairs of DPNs, put them on there, load your stitches in groups of 5 on double pointed needles, and then just reload them onto your working needle. Just make sure that you get them in order and you're not making some, weird pleat. Come on. Stand up and let me catch a needle. Stitch. There we go. And the last one. I'll put my clip back on so we can spread it out. There we go. And see, this is how we're going to run this seam. Now, all we have to do, since this is regular stockinette stitch and not primarily the herringbone, we can just go ahead and do a typical 3 needle bind off on here. Alrighty? And away we go. Oh, gonna have to attach your yarn, because remember we cut it here. Okay, so I'm going to attach my yarn and I'm going to do a 3 needle bind off right here. Be right back. I just wanted to let you know I'm doing this 3-needle bind off with just a single strand, and I gave myself a fairly decent length of tail, so if I have to do any little cinching up at corners or edges or whatever, I've got something to do it with. So just your typical 3-needle bind off. Across these last 10 stitches. Alrighty, so my 3-needle bind off's done over here. My 2-step bind off's done here. Got this little bit of hole here. This hole is a little bigger than what I've experienced in the past, but look, my stitches got a little loopy. So I'm just going to get a needle, whip that up, and I'll turn it inside out and show you how it looks. And there we go. Here's our seam line. Going all the way across. Lines up pretty decently. Okay? And it makes a kind of a nice little dimpled back at the corner of the hood so it doesn't stick up like a gnome hat or whatever. A little stitch manipulation, a little, you know, a little finessing, make it look real pretty for you. Okay, let's move on. Keep going. You're doing great. Bye. Alrighty, now the structural panel. Here's my panel. It's 24 inches wide, 73 rows long. Now remember, there is a note on the pattern that says the length of this panel should be adjusted to the actual wearer's length. And the way to do that, let me show you where this goes and how to make sure that it's going to fit the person you're making this for. All right, so here's the inside of our garment. This is that ridge, or excuse me, the ribbing. Here's the great divide, right? Okay, this is the inside. I want to take my structural panel and I'm going to take my cast on edge and I will sew it right here along the top of this row, right at where the transition is from the ribbing to the stockinette. Okay, that's where I will sew the bottom. All right, the top of the structural panel is going to go right here in the center of the back, center of those 53 cast-ons. Okay, so that's where I want to sew that. So this measurement between here and here, okay, if the center of this rib is where your natural waist is, okay, that's, okay, so if you measure on your body, the natural, from the length of your natural waist up to the back of your neck, okay, then subtract approximately an inch, okay, that's where your center, that's the length of your structural panel to get your customized fit. One of the things that'll make your customized fit. Well, I'll show you the other way next week. Enjoy yourselves. I think you're probably catching up. There wasn't that much to do this week, right? Next week, there's even less. You guys will get done. Keep going.